Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about how to protect the devices you use the most against cyber threats. That, of course, are your mobile phones. This is the third in the series of security webinars that we've been doing recently. My name is Ross Cairns, Senior Sales Engineer here at Ivanti. And with me, I've got Ash Armitt, also Senior Sales Engineer at Ivanti. Hi, Ash. How you going?
Good. How's it going? Hi, everyone.
Cool. So Ash is going to do most of the talking today, which is great. But a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. So this session will be recorded. And, so if you want to go back and watch it later, you can do that. There is going to be some links within the On24 platform here. So you'll see them around this main video screen. So you can go and check out some related content. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the chat section on your screen, and we will answer them at the end or during the session through chat. It's a 30-minute webinar, so we want to get straight into it. And I'll hand it over to Ash to tell us all about how we protect our mobile phones.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. So, look, we're going to start with a market overview here. I think it's important that we understand where we are at today with mobile operating systems and the attacks that are happening on them. It's real. It's happening. We do see this. So, look, 71% have indicated that mobiles are very important to their business. So they're putting a lot of faith and trust into their mobile operating environments, and they value that mobiles are critical to business operations. But what we do see is that mobile security is often overlooked. So we do see a lack of spending in regards to mobile security, and it's always just the desktops, the laptops, and the networks that get all the spend for security when mobile is typically left out. But there is a big rise. We've got a few stats there that we've got from a security index from Verizon there. One big thing that's on the rise today that we've been seeing over COVID specifically has been the rise in spear phishing. So getting those fake emails, getting those fake texts, and clicking on those links and potentially having our data getting compromised. So when it comes to mobile threats, they're actually very creative and very complex. We're not just dealing with a dumb phone anymore. These phones are literally our laptops and desktops from a couple of years ago in our pocket. If not sometimes greater than. We're seeing breaches, and if you haven't seen a breach, it's probably happened, but probably didn't realize yet. So it's often a lower priority when it comes to mobile threat defense. And as we mentioned earlier around the spend, we typically don't see organizations spending as much money on mobile security when they should. And with the rise in spear phishing, 255 million spear phishing attacks, quite a lot. So what are the attack types? We've got device level, network level, app level, and phishing and contact protection. So at a device level, we're looking at free app downloads and all those SMSs, which come through, and we're clicking on those links, taking us to sites we're not familiar with, which are disguised as something legitimate. We've got our network level attacks, a man-in-the-middle attacks, all those free Wi-Fi access points at our domestic terminals, international terminals, down at our favorite Westfields. We're all connecting to it, whether it's intentional or accidental, and we want to have visibility into that. We have our app level threats as well, clearly malware embedded into applications, getting them from the App Store as well. Some of the apps, as much and as good a job as Google and Apple do, there is still a handful of apps on there out of all those thousands, tens of thousands of apps that are compromised. So, and steal your data as well with excessive permissions. We also have phishing protection attacks. So being able to socially engineer, clicking on those links, and yeah, getting some malware from those links as well. So one of the key features that we offer with the mobile threat defense, that's app threat protection, device threat protection, network threat protection, phishing and content protection, and we've got a zero-touch deployment for 100% adoption. And that's a key critical component to getting your fleet enabled completely across the board. So we've got, there's various products on the market that do mobile threat defense by themselves. And then we've got a UEM product as well. But when you join the two together, that's how you get that 100% adoption rate. And built into our Ivanti Neurons for MDM solution in our Ivanti Go app, which is our client app that goes on iOS and Android, we have two SDKs built in. So we've got Zimperium SDK and we've got our Lookout SDK. And we can, as I'll show you in a second, we can actually enable those two SDKs just via an activation key without any end user interaction. So we got always on protection. We can detect if the device is encrypted, jailbroken, root compromised. We've got compliance actions that we can have tiered. So we'll run through those as well. And then we've got those actions that we can take: block, quarantine, send a message, wait, etc. And that all ties into GDPR privacy enforcement as well. So on that note, let's get practical. So yeah, going to have a look at the dynamic endpoint security approach and how we can look at that around patching as well as detect multiple threat vectors for device network, and can show you a phishing attack, and that's going to form the foundation of a defense in depth strategy. At a high level, this is how we would configure it, and we could go through this today. So we obtain the key, we create activation configuration, we could create some custom attributes if required by Lookout. With Zimperium, we don't need to do that, and we've got a compromised device policy and anti-phishing configuration, and we do some local device actions. So Russ, I'm going to jump over to the console.
Awesome. I think this is, for me, like, I've done a lot of travel recently, and I do a lot of stuff from my phone into all our corporate apps, right? And I think it's something that, as you said before, a lot of people overlook, don't consider it yet, don't put as much focus as they probably should. So it's it's something that a lot of customers really kind of probably want to think about some more, so that you can cover that exposure area, right?
Yeah, 100%. Good point. Look, traveling around everywhere, there's risks everywhere. We've got Bluetooth as well, attacks, not just Wi-Fi. So there's various other attacks as well. We'll go through those local actions. There's a ton of things there. But look, this is a console. We've got our Zimperium console and our Lookout console. We're going to start by going to our configurations in here and inviting neurons for MDM. And we'll be adding in a MTD configuration. So we've got all the selections here, and we can just literally type in MTD. That brings up our three major MTD configurations, which we're going to enable today. First things first, we need to get activated. So we're going to activate it. Give it a name, we choose the vendor, in this case, Zimperium, and we've got to get the key. I'll show you how to get it from both Zimperium and Lookout, but we're going to configure it for Zimperium. So in the dashboard, you go to Manage, and then you go to Integrations. We've already got our cloud integrated here. The way we would do that is by creating a user, give it permissions, and we link it via API, and we sync the device groups. I've already done this, it's already there. And once this is looking good, got a connectivity confirmed, we can then copy the activation code. So we copy the link, and we can go and put this into Now, if it was with Lookout, we get our dashboard, we just go to our devices and then go to device policy groups. And you can create a group or use an existing one. And these enrollment codes are what you want to get enrolled into. We just copy that in here as well. But that's literally it. We can choose all devices, or we can do custom. We've got user groups and device groups, which you would create previously. So for this device groups, we can select certain devices, device types. And if it's users, we've got different user groups as well, whether they come from AD, Azure AD, Ping, Opta, or local user groups as well. In this case, it's going to distribute to all. And yeah, that's it. So that's literally going to enable MTD activation. I'll just bring up a device here. So it's a device that's pre-enrolled and registered. And we go here on the client. We now see we've got a threat defense option here with device threats, network threats, and app threats. So that's all we have to do to get that to that point. At that point, we're going to want to configure some policies around that and some actions. We'll just jump back into the console.
Actually, quickly, what you've done so far, that's, it's now activated MTD, but that's where we talk about the 100% enrollment or 100% activation, right? Across the board, because we have the MDM devices are enrolled, and that's 100% coverage, basically.
Yeah, 100% coverage. So that's by setting it to all devices, we have 100% adoption. So no one has to do anything. No one has to click on anything. That was literally all you have to do.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? It's nobody has to actually accept that on that endpoint. So our end users don't actually have to go in there and go, oh yes, okay, or no, I don't want that because I want, the perception of the company maybe looking over their shoulder type of thing.
Yep, that's right. So we're going to create a mobile threat defense local action configuration, just give it a name. We can enable to customize all of them, or we can just do one for all. So take ARP scanning, for example. We've got a local iOS action of lock email access and app connect apps. So anything that's made by Ivanti, plus anything that's local, we can do that. That's using our SDK. That's the Ivanti Neurons for MDM SDK. Or we can send the traffic to a network sinkhole. So that's for iOS. And for Android, we've got these actions that we can take. So we can wipe the device, remove all the configs, remove the Wi-Fi. Don't remove the Wi-Fi, remove the manage apps. We can disable Bluetooth and disconnect from Wi-Fi. There's quarantine, wipe, and disconnect, and disable. And that's pretty much for all of these configurations. There's a lot here. But yeah, there's typically the ones we'd be looking at is like a man-in-the-middle attack. For all of these, we'd be putting actions for rogue access points, unsecured Wi-Fi. What do we want to do around that? Typically, we'd probably want to be notified about that, but because there are times where we do need to connect to some kind of a unsecured Wi-Fi to get into a captive portal. Depends what your level of risk that you're willing to accept there. Got a device threats. So DNS change. You can see what's applicable for iOS and Android as well. They differ. But we've got all of these, a device pin, jailbroken and root detection. That's a good one because in our product, providing units for MDM, we detect jailbreak and root detection. And then on top of that, we've got the SDK as well to detect jailbreak and root detection. So we can get 2 levels there. USB debugging mode, that's one which is going to likely get data onto an Android device. So it's one thing that you'd want to know about a block in an enterprise production environment, as well as untrusted profiles for iOS. And obviously got versions as well. And then we've got our app threats, which is if we've got a suspicious Android app or an iOS app or out of compliance. And we've got the ability to show a notification or not for all of them. So that's pretty much it. Once we've configured, we do the same again. And that's it. It's done. Put that in there.
With these, Ash, the device doesn't have to actually be online, does it? Can be in flight mode, and the actions that it has in the profile you've just kind of configured, they still apply in most cases, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot more local actions are able to be performed offline with the Zimperium product. With the Lookout product, it's more online focused, but there is a few local actions that we can do for Lookout as well. So, Lookout's primarily cloud-based, with Zimperium being able to have their solution installed in the customer's data center. So we've got that as well. The next thing we'd be doing is looking at anti-phishing protection. So phishing and content protection, PCP, you'll probably be hearing it in the future. So we'll enable for iOS to analyze the URLs and content blocking as well for anti-phishing. Same with Android. The difference is we use our Ivanti tunnel app to tunnel that traffic. After this, we'll go and add in the tunnel app. We'll show you the configuration for the tunnel app. Sign it to the devices again, and we're done. So literally within a few minutes, we've done the activation, we've done the local actions, and we've done the phishing and content protection configurations to send that out to the device. And then the user will not have to accept them. They're already being pushed to the device and getting consumed by our app. So next thing is adding in the tunnel app. We've already got the tunnel app here. So for Android, we'll be going to our app configurations and manage configurations for Android. We'll add in a new one, typically, and we just give it a name. And we want to have it auto launch on install. You can select other options as well, but yeah, if we're just using this for phishing and content protection, we can select this box. If not, we can use it for all the other functionality that Tunnel provides, which is all of these things here, which we won't go into today. But then we're going to go down and manage our permissions. So we're accepting the permissions on behalf of the user. And we can auto grant, auto deny, or use our setting that we set at the global level and assign it there. And the other key piece of information is to add in the install device policy. So we add that in, give it a name. I usually do silently install and make it priority as a high. And you can select these options as well. But that is pretty much it. And then we can go to our devices and have a look at our iOS device here. So this is from the admin side. What can we see? You can see we've got MTD local actions pending install. If we go to the device, do a refresh. That should have installed. There we go. So that's all installed. I haven't done anything in the device. If you look at the device, I'm just going to go through and look at device threats. There are none, but we can see we've got some information there. Is it a vulnerable iOS version? No. Do we have any risky profiles? No. Device pin is enabled. Is it jailbroken? No. So we get that information right there. Look at our network threats. Connect secure Wi-Fi. If there was something of threat here, we would get a notification. And same with any app threats as well. So that will do a scan. We've also got our phishing protection. So for iOS, we need to set a phishing extension, so a content blocker. So we've got the payload there. Then the only thing that we would have to do is go into settings, go into Safari, and we go down to our extensions, and we select Ivanti Go. For Android, we don't need to select anything. It will just work. So we've got that. Let's go test it out now. So we can go into Safari. We're going to use OpenFish just to get a verified phishing URL. But this URL could be coming from anywhere: SMS, email. We'll just go there. Go and select a random link. There we go. The URL was blocked by a content blocker. We've got a few on device, and that'll block almost instantly. But there's some, if it can't, like this one. So some of these URLs, some of the content will be in another part of the page. So it still allow a page, but it might be found somewhere else. There we go. So this is actually Google in Safari telling us that there's a deceptive website. So we can still go here and then go to that website, but then we block it. I'll just show you some more.
The interesting thing about that list of OpenFish, they're all very new, right, Ash? Like they're all they're all recent. So
that's correct.
It was showing how we are blocking these kind of sites that may have only popped up in the last, hours or days?
Yeah, not very long ago. So if you just saw this one just then, there we go. So that's an Ivanti message or notification that we on our database that we've just put on our client app. It didn't know if this was good or bad, so it decided to do a net lookup by Imperium to see whether or not this URL is malicious or not. And so, yeah, it sent us a message and it blocked it as well. And if we go troubleshoot, threat defense, we can see here the phishing database date. So that's up to 6/6 at 9:55. So that was the last time that got updated. And anything after that, we would go and look up.
I've certainly I've had it running on my phone, and certainly like when you go to on a plane, for example, the Wi-Fi on the plane, you're in airplane mode, but you connect to the airplane Wi-Fi, and it gets reported as a dodgy Wi-Fi on your phone because there's typically no password on it.
Yep.
And obviously, it's just a notification, but you can have other actions that kind of occur there as well.
Yep. A lot of risky things in airports. I just wanted to show this tier compliance. So we just give it a name for a custom policy. So we've got a anti-phishing status as well. So we can do things around any phishing is equal to enabled or not enabled, and we can send some notifications. So if someone hasn't enabled that for iOS, so we can also put in OS version is equal to, or OS is equal to iOS. And it's not enabled. We can send those notifications to then get people to enable it. So that's automation, right? We've also got the ability to MTD activation status. So this is more of a peace of mind thing. Is equal to pending. So we can report on that and add in another tiered compliance around anything in this list as well for certain devices. So we've got a whole heap of policies that we can set with a whole heap of notifications and actions. With our actions, we've got our wait, quarantine, block, or retire. So we can wait for hours or days, and we can add in another one and do unlimited amount of waiting if we wanted to. Quarantine the device, remove all the apps or configs, push some new configurations as well. And yeah, suspend some personal apps depending on the device. We can block the device as well. And we can also retire the device if we wanted to. If we reach the end of a compliance tier. If we go through all this, we'd probably end up at the end adding in a retire here because the end user hasn't followed the instructions. That's what we would probably do.
The last resort.
As the last resort. But that's our compliance engine. It's very powerful. But overall, that is how we configure MTD for evading neurons for MDM.
Awesome. Thanks, Ash. That's been really good. We better go and check out any questions that have been sent through. Let's go and look into our questions.